Welcome to Total Fibonacci Trading. My name is Josh, and we're going to be working together through the next 8 classes to help you decode this magic of Fibonacci analysis. Students that have been with me for a while and watched me use this in Power Trader Live, we all kind of get back to the same spot. We say it's just magic. Well, it's not actually magic. There's a lot of science, and there's a lot of skills and analysis that go into Fibonacci analysis and Fibonacci trading. And we're going to unpack that over the next 8 sessions. For now, though, let's jump on into a brief introduction. And why delay? Let's go right into the Fibonacci sequence. And if you've Googled it or used Wikipedia or whatever, you know that the sequence is 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, so on and so forth. And you would say, that is fantastic, but what does that have to do with trading? Before we get to trading, let's take a look at some other ways that we can also view the Fibonacci sequence. In addition to looking at the Fibonacci sequence numerically, we can also look at it represented graphically as well. And probably one of the most common ways of seeing it is with the Fibonacci spiral. There it is on your screen. And the Fibonacci spiral is constructed by taking the same sequence, so 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth, and turning those into boxes is probably the easiest way to think of it. So if we took a box and made it 1 unit by 1 unit by 1 unit, and then we took another box and made it 1 unit by 1 unit by 1 unit, if you add those together, what do you get? Well, a box, it's going to be now 2 units by 2 units by 2 units. And what do you think the next one's going to be? Absolutely. You've got 3. So now we've got 3 units by 3 units by 3 units, and so on and so forth, 5, 8, 13. And what you would begin doing, let's get a different color so you can see here, is connecting the dots. You just connect the corners of the boxes, and you can see in my layman's handwriting how that develops into the Fibonacci spiral. Now, obviously that was just freehanded, but if you took that and actually measured it out with graph paper and connected the corners, you would get the Fibonacci spiral. Well, that's fun to look at the Fibonacci sequence in a spiral, and we recognize the numeric form, but did you also know that it shows up in nature as well? In fact, a natural rendition of this spiral is found in the hurricane. Here's a picture of a hurricane. I don't know which hurricane it was, but I looked it up on the internet, and it was a satellite imagery of a hurricane. Now, they're not perfect Fibonacci spirals, but the representation is there. It's in the same image of what the Fibonacci spiral is. In addition to seeing it in weather patterns, other natural elements would include things like the nautilus shell. In fact, it's hard to find any kind of a Fibonacci book or work or anything written without a nautilus shell in it, because it's just so dang similar to what our Fibonacci spiral looks like. Again, I apologize for my freehand. In fact, it's so cool, I put it right here. You'll see it for the whole remainder of this series in the upper right-hand corner, the nautilus shell. And so we've got numeric representations, we've got graphical representations, we have natural representations, but did you also know there's oral or musical representations as well? Let's take a look at the piano keyboard here. And what should pop out at you, if you can tell from this little snapshot, is there's 5 black keys on the keyboard. That's a Fibonacci sequence. And those black keys are actually divided into groups of 2 and 3. 2 and 3 being Fibonacci sequences. Also, in Western music, we have chord progressions. And I don't want to teach you music theory. That's not what we're here to do. But suffice it to say that when you listen to a song, country or rock or whatever it is you listen to, there is a certain progression that the chords in that song work through. Those chords are labeled 1, which we call the root, 3, and 5. 1, 3, and 5, all Fibonacci sequences or sequential numbers. Now, do I expect you to understand music theory? Not at all. What I do want you to understand, though, is that the Fibonacci sequence feels right. It seems right. It has a pleasing sound, a pleasing visual perspective to it. Now, in addition to being numerical, in addition to being graphical, in addition to being natural, in addition to being musical and oral, there's one last way we could look at it, and that's anatomically. Take a look at this X-ray on your screen here, and we can actually get quite a deep lesson in Fibonacci analysis. Now, first of all, your hand itself, at the end of your arms, you've got 2 of them last time I checked. 2 is a Fibonacci number. Is that coincidental? I don't know. Maybe it's anecdotal. You've also got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Did you know why that is? because you're supposed to do twice as much listening as talking. But nevertheless, let's dig in here a little bit deeper. Maybe that was coincidental. But let's take a look at this hand, because this is fascinating to me. We, of course, have 5 fingers. Each of those 5 fingers each have 3 joints. Those are all Fibonacci sequences. And what's really amazing to me, and this is where, if you believe in creation, that's my personal belief. It's interesting. If you believe in evolution, it is. But however we got to where we're at, if you take those 5 fingers with 3 joints in them and you measure them, the distance between the first joint, the second joint, and the third joint all fall within the golden ratio, which we're going to learn about in a second, which is essentially the Fibonacci sequence. So pull up your favorite application, Photoshop or whatever it is, and arbitrarily you're going to discover that first joint is 5 units, that second joint is 3 units, and that third joint is 2 units. That's how those all work together. Why is that? I don't know. It falls in the interesting but not quite too helpful category yet. Which really leads me to this question here. All this is great, but how do fibs put cash in my pocket? How do they put money right into my jeans? And that's the whole point of this lesson. I've seen it said out there that the fibs are hocus pocus, and I've seen people say that fibs it's just this contrived science, but I really don't think that's the case. And I think that you may see a little clearer once we complete this program exactly why that is. I think fibs in general, and the golden ratio, which is what the Fibonacci sequence is built on, is a model for a lot of what we experience in life. I just showed you several examples, numerical examples, graphical examples, natural examples, oral examples, and even anatomical examples. We're used to seeing it. We're comfortable with it. And I think what happens as we start diving into the stock market is we get used to seeing those patterns in life, and it makes sense that those patterns would translate into the market. I'm not by any means suggesting you trade the market by feel, but I think what happens sometimes is traders start to get a little premonition. Like, yep, it seems like we've gone far enough, we need to retrace. Or it feels like we've retraced far enough, we're ready to go again. And what are those feelings? What do they come back to? And I think it's no different than having that feeling in music. Like, we're going to go from chord 1 to 3 to 5, and it just feels right. That's why fibs work so well in the marketplace. And specifically, the way that we're going to put cash in your jeans over the next several sessions is by upgrading the quality of your analysis. If you've gone through Foundations of Stocks and Options, which is where you should have begun, so hopefully you've got that course under your belt already, I'm going to say that you graduated with one of these, right? Y'all remember this? This is your first camera that you got, and it worked, and you put the film in it, and you went around and burned up a whole roll or two of 35 millimeter film, and mom and dad got mad at you because you were supposed to not go through it so fast, and you'd rush down to the pharmacy and get them developed. And back when I was little, it took a day or two to get them back. And now now it's digital, right? We don't have to wait at all. But it worked, right? It was a good, faithful first camera, and it got you through a bunch of bumps and bruises, and it survived, and you survived, and you got to kind of catalog your life, and we wouldn't have changed it for the world. That's what beginning technical analysis is like. You have your first camera, you can take some snapshots, you can record what's going on, you can be successful already, but what I want to do over these 8 sessions that we have together is upgrade the quality of your camera so you start working with one of these, a big old digital DSLR camera with a monster lens on it, right? We want to be able to zoom into our charts. We want to see more clearly, just like a photographer would take the big old lens and start working back and forth and constructing their picture exactly the way they want it. That's what we want to do using this new additional tool called Fibonacci analysis. It's not meant to be a substitute for what you've already learned. It's meant to be additive. In fact, I've heard Jeremy say several times that we've got support and resistance, and then with Fibonacci analysis, it turns it into laser-focused support and resistance. And that's what we're going to work towards here over the next 8 sessions. So go ahead, pause this video. When you're ready to jump into the next one, I want to start talking to you specifically about how to choose the right tool for the right job, and make sure that we've got a clarity in where we're heading, so that we're not kind of mashing up these things and trying to use, you know, a child's camera at a professional wedding ceremony for photographic session. So that's where we're headed. I'll see you right back here in the next video when you're ready, and we'll talk about selecting the right tool for the job.